Good morning. Welcome, everyone, to another compelling episode of Situational Awareness Matters, real talk with real people. I'm Lee Schwartzberg with my co-hosts Renee Archambault and Chet Babcock. As always, our podcast is proudly sponsored by i12 Intelligence Group Analysts and Peace of Mind Training. Renee, Chet.
Good morning.
Go. Good morning, Renee. Good morning, Chet. How are you gents today?
Morning, folks.
Oh, how are you?
Excellent. So, today we're embarking on a journey into a most controversial topic, delving deep into the historical context of mind control pharmaceuticals and the U.S. government's involvement. This episode is called Unraveling the Truth. Chet, if you would, take it away.
Okay, our story begins in the post-World War II era, a time of Cold War tensions and rising uncertainties. The U.S. government, driven by fears of Soviet and Chinese brainwashing, initiated early experiments with mind-altering substances. Project Bluebird, which was initiated early in the 1950s by the CIA, was a highly classified program aimed at understanding the potential use of mind-altering substances for national security purposes. And then it morphed into Project Artichoke, and finally, the notorious MK Ultra, launched in 1953. It was a very dark chapter of our history. MK Ultra wasn't the only such program. Operation Midnight Climax used brothels to administer LSD to unsuspecting customers, studying its effect via two-way mirrors. The Edgewood Arsenal experiments tested LSD, PCP, and other drugs on thousands of soldiers. Thousands of Americans, from prisoners to students, became unwitting subjects. Today we will examine the objectives, methods, and far-reaching consequences of MK Ultra, including the controversial experiments with LSD, psilocybin, and other substances on unwitting suspects. Proponents argue that in the context of Cold War paranoia, such initiatives were motivated by a genuine concern for national security and the desire to stay ahead in the psychological warfare arena, even if the methods employed were ethically questionable.
Rennie, if you would, please.
The tragic legacy of programs like MK Ultra underscore the needs for vigilance, informed consent, and human rights protections. It also doesn't help that conspiracy theories that our own government is trying to shove what they think is the best medicine down our throats, literally. I resent the term conspiracy because it makes it sound like those of us that are trying to uncover information and get it out there are nuts, and we're not. And I guess that's the government's way of trying to discredit us. But looking into the future landscape of things, mind control technologies advance with neural implants, gene editing. We all know that goes on daily, and advanced pharmaceuticals. While these innovations offer benefits, they also pose risks. For decades, our government secretly sponsored research into mind-altering drugs. I have a list of drugs that we're going to show later on, all under the banner of defending national security, which is national security covers a wide range of things, but it's bullshit too. Anyway, but these experiments violated human rights, still do today, and threaten the very values America claimed to defend. Conspiracies persist around government collusion with Big Pharma, develop mood-controlling drugs to pacify the population. While publicly unproven, these concerns reflect lingering suspicion of the government's role in past misdeeds.
All right. So if you guys can see the video, the script of the videos playing up above, it shows the early Cold War experiments, and it's not ironic, but it's true that the CIA is involved in the majority of this. So let's look at this here real quick. Now the audio's off on that, so on that video. Take a look here. Hold on while we get this moving. All right. So today we have a new set of concerns around mind-altering medications. The widespread prescribing of psychiatric drugs by government health services has raised questions about mass medications for vulnerable groups. That's a big statement. And while I was doing the research for this particular podcast, it brought me down a crazy, I don't know, Alice in Wonderland rabbit hole of Jesus Christ, what are we getting into, and what has the public not even known? I can tell you that MK Ultra, I knew about the term, I knew about what it was just a little bit, but once you did the research, holy shit. Another one, Randy, I like when you said that you don't like the conspiracy word.
I don't. It discredits us. It's their way of saying that we have no credibility.
Right, and then we have tinfoil hats, and we're looking at it from a perspective of you don't know what you're talking about, right? But when you said the government shoves it down our throat because they think they know what's best for us, that has always been the case about government and how they interdict in what we're doing. So, as these stories persist around government collusions with big pharma and how they develop mood-controlling drugs. All right, here it is. The Men Who Stare at Goats. Did you guys see this?
Yeah.
It was a hilarious movie, but
Yep.
the irony was it's based on a true story.
Yeah.
And to our listeners and viewers, if you haven't watched this movie, watch this movie. This is George Clooney plays a great role in this, and I think you're going to love it. It fits right into what we're talking about here. Now, do we know that big pharma developed mood controlling drugs to help pacify our population, certain populations, right? These concerns reflect lingering suspicions of the government's role in just about everything we've done. So I got a question for you, gents, while we're here right now. Could any of this be pointed to the sharp increase of active shooter events? Gents, your thoughts. Randy, why don't you hit it first? Because I know you got a lot to say on this one.
Yeah, I do. Yes, I believe that these mind control and this pharmaceutical use, yes, because in a tectonic society, the trend would seem to be towards the aggression of the individual and the support of millions of uncoordinated citizens easily within the reach of magnetic and attractive personalities, effectively exploited by the latest communication techniques to manipulate emotions and control their reasons. Let's make one thing clear. Experts are never wrong. They're always lying. There's a big difference.
You think?
Yeah.
Well, let's go back to 2023, COVID, and Fauci, and Birx, all those people. Free advice. If the government tells you not to buy a gun, go out and get two, okay?
At least, yeah.
Yeah.
No charge for that one, guys.
That was free. Thanks, Rennie.
You're welcome.
Yeah. That kind of segues right into the shooting in New Hampshire from a couple of days ago. Renee, I know you have a lot of interest in that one also.
First-hand experience.
Yeah, some points that came up about that. Initially, they said the shooter was a transient living in the area, so forth and so on. But as they delved into this, they found out that he's a psychiatric patient. He was living in the general area, but he had a residence there. He was a psychiatric patient at that particular hospital at one time or another. He'd been arrested before and found incompetent to stand trial, and there were some questions about that too. I got a lot of questions about this, though, in general. If he's an alleged transient, if he's a psychiatric patient with a previous criminal record, how the hell did he come up with an AR-15, a 9mm handgun, various other assorted weapons that were found in a U-Haul van that was running parked outside the hospital? Okay, where he's not competent to stand trial. Okay, here we go. But yet all this stuff was acquired somehow. Now, at this point, I think we had this conversation a few days ago. The toxicology reports and the other medical reports aren't being released. They're just showing that both victims died of gunshot wounds. the suspect or the shooter and a victim. Okay. There's got to be some psychosomatic drugs in this guy. Did
Yeah,
they
but
affect this or not? And before we go, one more thing that I need to say about that. He was also worked at the hospital for about a year as a peer support specialist. If they hired this guy, they really need to rethink their process.
Their hiring practices, their hiring process, right? So if you look at historically and statistically, if you, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but we can get them on later. But historically and statistically, the shooters' toxicology reports are hardly ever given out to the public. And if you want them, you have to have a FOIL request, a Freedom of Information Act, right? And then sometimes they don't even do that. So yeah, interesting, isn't it?
Like I explained to Lee the other day, even after a patient is deceased, 50 years, HIPAA covers them.
Right. Well, explain the HIPAA Act, right? The HIPAA violations, right?
Yeah, 50 years, even after you're dead.
Yeah.
Now,
which is certain.
I was talking to somebody yesterday at work that was talking to a woman yesterday morning that was there. The guy actually shot at this woman through the glass, which was not bullet resistant. The glass didn't shatter. And after he fired the second shot at her, he turned and shot the security guard point blank. Poof.
Who was
So I guess
unarmed, by
those
the way.
hospital guards are not armed?
Huh?
Those hospital securities is not armed?
No.
Well, clearly, right?
Front lobby. Yeah, not anymore, hopefully.
Yeah, well, here in New York, in the major hospitals, every hospital now has armed security, a contingency of armed security. But
you got too many liberal, too many tree huggers up here running these institutions that don't even want you to have, they don't even want the guys to have handcuffs or anything like that.
right.
They just want you to hug them and sing Kumbaya.
Yeah. Perfect segue into what I wanted to talk about next, right? Does our current system, healthcare system, providing system, fall short in mental health crisis treatment? Gents, your thoughts?
Yeah, without a doubt. They pretty much opened the door to all these mental hospitals. We can't be terribly mean to them. We can't institutionalize people that need to be institutionalized. There's a lot of folks in the world that just need to be locked up and kept away from a civilized society. And get them the treatment that they need. It's a travesty that we're foisting these people on the general public. Get them some help. They're not going to find it in some dumpster out behind a McDonald's where they're living at. Get some money into this. We waste billions and billions of dollars every year. Why the government doesn't start investing these funds where they need to go is beyond me.
Law enforcement has a stop and drop policy. If there's any indication that there's drugs involved or there's mental health, instead of taking them to the jail, take them to the hospital, drop them off there, and then leave them at the hospital. And the hospital's stuck with them for a month or two.
Right. So on that end, right, you gents being former LEO guys and me being a current EMS guy, the challenge is, first and foremost, I don't know about your general area and the cops in your specific neighborhoods, but some of the cops in my neighborhood I wouldn't say always, but more often than not would tell them the perp or the guy in handcuffs, either you go with them or you go with us.
That's how it is today still.
Yeah, but it's a grave mistake to do that because they know if they come with us, EMS, we're not armed and we don't have powers of arrest and control. So they're going to come with us.
If there's any hint of suspicion, there's any medical issue involved, the jail ain't going to take them. The jail's
that's right.
Agreed.
The jail's going to call an ambulance, have them brought to the hospital for medical evaluation. All that person has to do is make one SI claim or one HI claim, and then the hospital owns them weeks and months until they can get them a bed at the state hospital.
Right. Now, here's the challenge with that from my perspective, right? We're getting away from what we want to talk about, but very quickly, if they know how to play the game and they no HI, no SI, homicidal ideation, suicidal ideation, for those of you who didn't know, then they'll come with us as EMS providers, and they'll play the game until the doors close. Right? That's the challenge. And then that leads back into the mental health process. These general population people, if you will, know how to play the goddamn game.
Mm-hmm.
They know how to play the game. All right, gents, we're heading in towards our first little break, so we'll pick it up as soon as we get back.
Yep.
Hello, darkness, my old friend. I've come to talk with you again, because a vision softly creeping left its seeds while I was sleeping, and the vision that was planted in my brain still remains within the sound of silence. In restless dreams I walked alone, narrow streets of cobblestone, neath the halo of a street lamp. I turned my collar to the cold and damp, when my eyes were stabbed by the flash of a neon light that split the night and touched the sound of silence. And in the naked light I saw 10,000 people, maybe more. People talking without speaking, people hearing without listening, people writing songs and voices never shared, and no one dared disturb the sound of silence. Fool, said I, you do not know. Silence like a cancer grows. Hear my words that I might teach you. Take my arms that I might reach you. But my words, like silent raindrops, fell and echoed in the wells of silence, and the people bowed and prayed to the neon god they made, and the sign flashed out its warning, and the words that it was forming, and the sign said the words of the prophets are written on the subway walls, in tenement halls, and whispered in the sound of silence.
So, welcome back, folks. Mr. Producer, could you put up that list of drugs that the CIA was using, please? So for those of you who are not aware, while we're waiting for the list to come up, CIA actually introduced LSD into this country. Here's a partial list right here of drugs that the CIA tested during their mind control experiments. A lot of them, if you look at the list closely, are still in use today. Epinephrine, Dramamine, coffee, cocaine. They're still in use today. MK Ultra used over 150 sub-projects, took center stage focusing on LSD and other mind-altering substances such as mescaline, which is used today, MDMA, ecstasy, scopolamine, barbiturates, and amphetamines. All stuff we see every day that sometimes people present with problems. Lee, your thoughts?
Can you guys see me?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, because I
We're
lost
back.
all the video. All right, no problem. No worries. So when we talk about those drugs, right? All of them that you mentioned before, the challenge is always going to be, Rennie, you said it before. The government's going to try and do what they think is best for us, and literally, figuratively, and sometimes more often than not forcefully, going to shove it down our throats. So the question is the widespread prescribing of psychiatric drugs by not only government health services, but what about what big pharma is pushing to not only the major hospitals, but also the local doc in the boxes and the local doctors who have privileges at other hospitals?
How about all the kickbacks that go with it?
Well, you're right. So, I was waiting for you to bring that up, right? Here in New York, especially for Northwell Health, doctors are not legally allowed to accept anything more than I think it's $15 in gift cards. They can't even buy breakfast and lunch for them anymore.
Really? That's interesting.
Yeah, and you have to sign for that. And every year, which, oh, by the way, mine is probably due again this year, you have to watch the video that says, this is what you can do, this is what you can't do. If you get caught, well, you can be summarily released. Right? Now, next question for you, gents. Is there a link between the medications prescribed and the increase in active shooter events? Specifically, is there a fact-based research on what specific drugs or combination of drugs have been a common thread to known active shooters? Mr. Producer, if you could pull up the public mass shooting database. Right. Chet, you said earlier, all these things about the shooter that weren't released to the public. Right. Some of those things were most importantly or most specifically mental health directed, right?
Correct.
So here's my thought on that. And this will go back to what the question you said about how did he get these firearms and how did he get the long gun and the short gun? Because we all know that people who want to do us harm will find a way to access weapons by any means. Right? You remember that old bumper sticker back in the 70s and 80s? When guns are outlawed, only outlaws will have guns.
Yep.
Right? So in my hometown when I grew up, it's easier to get a gun on the street than it is to get a job. And pathetic as that may seem, I'm sure that hits hard for many hometowns as well. Now, the article specifically states that the data indicates that nearly every person who engaged in a mass shooting, active shooter mass shooting, were in, now this is like 98%, I think it was, were in a state of crisis in the days, weeks preceding the shooting. Take a moment to look at this NIJ, this National Institute of justice document. Now, the statement I have about this is there are rarely simple answers when examining human behavior. Mr. Producer, can you pull up the MK Ultra Operation Midnight Climax? While we're getting that, Whitey Bulger, well-known crime syndicate figure, is quoted here saying how he was subject to mind control in jail.
Whitey Bulger was from my neck of the woods.
Was he really?
Yeah, Somerville, Mass. 30 minutes down the street.
Interesting, right?
Yeah.
And if I still don't have any video, so I can't tell if it's up, but look at that, the Operation Midnight Climax.
Yeah, it's up here. Yeah.
Okay.
CIA is
And then-
employing mind control experiments.
Yep. About LSD. So
Yeah.
if you look at that for a moment, these are all things that are readily available. I didn't go into any top secret or clearance about that or anything. I just said, hey, I want to know about this. Internet, point me in the right direction, right? So I did some research. Now, those of you who may or may not know, Stephen Kinzer wrote a book. It was called Poisoner in Chief. It exposes how the CIA scientist Sidney Gottlieb worked in the 50s and early 60s to develop mind control drugs and deadly toxins that could be used against enemies of the United States government. Mr. Producer, if you could please pull up the Amazon picture of Poisoner in Chief.
What's up?
It's up there.
Okay, cool. All right, I can't see it. I only have audio. So this particular, he blew the whistle. Stephen Kinzer blew the whistle. Well, he was one of, I'm sorry. The whistleblowers in the early ages in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, may or may not still be around. The challenges we're going to face here in this MK Ultra and everything else, there was over 150 other sub-variations of MK Ultra that we didn't know about. And does that, Rennie, add on to this for me. Does this include HIPAA violations if we talk about these people who are involved in that?
Yes, if they signed up for it, absolutely.
Right? Now, what did you just tell me the other day about the JFK information?
So when I re-signed for my security briefing in 2014, they said just because you have a security clearance and you have a right to know the information doesn't mean that you need to know the information. If you don't have a need to know, then you're not going to know. And then they said, by the way, the government just extended the JFK files classification for another 70 years. So we're all going to be pushing daisies before the JFK information comes out. The government can extend it for as long as they want at any period of time they want.
For any given reason they want.
In other words, they're G-D.
Yep.
Patriotism
All right, so
until the end, when his conscience finally broke through. In the years after Gottlieb reluctantly returned to Washington, bits of information about his work began to emerge. He testified at 2 rounds of Senate hearings. Later, he was forced to defend himself against lawsuits filed by people who had come to suspect that they were among his victims. He revealed almost nothing beyond the fact that before leaving the CIA, he had destroyed all records of what he did. He was never convicted of a crime. His funeral in 1999 was private. Enough had become known about Gottlieb to tantalize obituary writers. The New York Times published its obituary under the circumspect headline, "Sidney Gottlieb, 80, dies, took LSD to CIA." It called Gottlieb a kind of genius, striving to explore the frontiers of the human mind for his country while searching for religious and spiritual meaning in his life. He served 2 decades as the senior scientist presiding over some of the CIA's darkest secrets. The Los Angeles Times obituary began, "James Bond had Q, the wizard who supplied 007 with dazzling gadgets to deploy against enemy agents. The CIA had Sidney Gottlieb." Others were sharper. The iconoclastic website Counterpunch headlined its obituary, "Pusher, Assassin, and Pimp. U.S. official poisoner dies." Another writer concluded that Gottlieb takes his place among the Jekyll and Hydes of the American 20th century, whether homesteading in Virginia's verdant hills or safeguarding national security with another experimental torture session. Gottlieb stayed loyal to the positivist credo that rational exploration and productive discipline will lead to good. In Britain, where obituaries are famously unrestrained, the tone was biting. The Guardian called Gottlieb everything you have dreamed of in a mad scientist in a pulp novel about the CIA, except that he was real. The Independent said he was living vindication for conspiracy theorists that there is nothing, however evil, pointless, or even lunatic, that unaccountable intelligence agencies will not get up to in the pursuit of their secret wars. The Times was even more vivid. When Churchill spoke of a world made darker by the dark lights of perverted science, he was referring to the revolting experiments conducted on human beings by Nazi doctors in the concentration camps. But his remarks might with equal justice have been applied to the activities of the CIA's Sidney Gottlieb. Indeed, what Gottlieb and his CIA henchmen did was only in degree different from the activities which had sent a number of Nazi scientists to the gallows at Nuremberg in 1946. Drugs were not Gottlieb's only weapon against the CIA's enemies. He was also involved in assassination plots, which at this distance read like something out of a Jacobean revenge play. After the ripple of notoriety that followed his death, Gottlieb faded back into obscurity. A few historical studies mention his name. One reports that he was known to some as the dark sorcerer for his conjuring in the most sinister recesses of the CIA.
So, based off that, I'm going on record. The Nashville shooter, 27 years old, transgendering, on a shitload of drugs, shows up at the school, tactical gear. She acted more professional than a 2nd Ranger Battalion member, and cool as a cucumber, shut the door out, walked through the door, and just started point blank executing kids. You don't do that unless you're under somebody's control. Not at that age, not with that upbringing. She graduated from the school too. So you're never going to convince me that the government doesn't have a hand in these massive shooter events.
Right. We spoke about that a while ago, right? About how much training let's just call it the shooter. How much training the shooter was given versus how much they showed, right?
I'm
don't learn that shit.
I'm going to take it a step further. That manifesto that we got copies of, I think that all a bunch of bullshit. I think that was released on purpose. That's not even the real deal. They don't want us to know the real truth.
Probably not. When we look at the government and the FOIA requests, why do we need a FOIA request if there's nothing to hide, right? Freedom of Information Act request. Mm-hmm. We have to request that information if we want to know.
They don't have to give it to you, and if they do, they can redact it as much as they want, except for the periods.
Yeah, exactly. So, let's talk about, in that vein of whatever you want to call it, because it's frustrating to me, actually. Oh, I get it. All right. I get it. Never mind.
Hey, Jeff.
Right,
sorry, buddy. We're just trying
to
figure out how to talk to you. We're not ignoring you. This is our
Sorry, Jeff.
Format.
Yeah.
So hi, Jeff.
Sorry, Jeff. We're you know what rhymes with rookie? You know what rhymes with cookie? Rookie, right? You remember your first day? Sorry, Jeff. Apologies.
Thanks for joining us.
All right.
Jeff, better eating. Thanks for joining, buddy.
Yeah. All right.
Just got to be smarter than the equipment we're working with, fellas.
Most days, right? All right. So Now we got that cleared up. All right. So let's talk about the ethical implications, right? First of all, do you think the government cares about anything else other than their opposite agenda? Thank you, Jeff. Appreciate that. They don't care about anything other than what they want to do and how they want to get it done, right? The tragic legacy of MK Ultra and every other of the 150 other subdomains that thing brought out highlights why we have to be vigilant about government overreach and ethical standards in research. Blah blah blah, right? That's a scripted line, right? Here's what it boils down to. The big picture, 14 steps behind us is we elected these fucking people to do the job that we thought they were going to do. But what we don't know is how many subcommittees and how many backroom deals and backroom negotiations happened behind us that we'll never be aware of, right? There's no quest for national security that can justify dehumanizing experiments or violating personal liberties. Or can it? Gents, your thoughts on that one?
Well,
Rennie.
I love you, brother. Don't take this the wrong way. But if you think that the government has any shred of ethnicity or anything ethical about it at all, your ass is sucking wind. All right? The government is not ethical in the least bit.
No, they have an agenda.
Agreed.
They have an agenda to fulfill, and they will take any steps to
Bingo.
fulfill the agenda, no matter what it is.
Right. Well, I mean, that's why I posed it that way, because I know where my mindset is, and I know where your gentlemen's are. However, the rest of us don't know. The rest of us watching us are just getting to know us, and they need to know about us. They need to know about what we stand for and why we're doing what we're doing. Again, I'm going to come back and say that there are rarely simple answers when examining human behavior, right? Everyone has a moral compass that points north or south. Whether or not we choose to go in the direction of our moral compass, I don't know. I could walk out tomorrow and just be like, well, I don't give a shit. Let's just blow something up, right? Or I could be like, nah, I know what happened. Like, here, check out the video.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, it's like we did discussed earlier. There's moral compasses, yeah, but
to find ways of mind control.
Okay, well, civilized society.
Or not. Yeah. Right.
And you have.
So what do we?
Go ahead.
Sorry, Chet. I apologize.
Okay. No worries. I was just thinking that since we're talking specifically about mind-altering drugs, what effect on the individual's moral compass do all these drugs have? Is there like you take whatever it is and it throws a switch in there that says, like you just said, well, I'm going to go out and blow shit up today. Is that what this is really all about?
Well, let me say this. Let me simplify it. So I'll put in simple terms so the general public can understand it. The government knows there's a correlation between drugs, illegal drugs, and guns and active shooters. Because if they didn't, well, what do you think Hunter Biden's being prosecuted today for? For lying on a form about drug use when buying a gun. So they know there's a correlation there. We know there's a correlation there. They're just keeping it hidden from us. And every mass shooter event that happens, it's the gun that gets blamed and the legal gun over. Never the active shooter or whoever's behind it.
Right. That's like blaming McDonald's for you getting fat, right? Because you're eating a quarter pounder every day.
There you go. Same difference.
Same difference.
Okay.
Right?
Now
that's like blaming your pen for putting the wrong answers on the goddamn test when you did it.
Right. Now, my thoughts on that exactly are there. Okay, we know there are no coincidences, right? Everything happens for a reason, right? If you believe in that mindset, then there's an agenda. The agenda is gun control and removing the ability to defend oneself. thus requires the
Jeff, you are
government to do it.
correct.
Say again? Yeah, okay. So, okay, no coincidence says there's an agenda, the government has an agenda. So are all of these folks just tools that are being used to further that agenda? You know, and that's why we can't get they have to do a FOIA request to figure out what the toxicology scans are. That's why they don't want us to know that stuff, right? Does that make sense?
Right, Jeff Betterini, you bring out a great point. They don't ask on the form if you're an alcoholic, but alcohol is on the CIA's list of mind-altering drugs they use. And a little historical perspective on this whole bullshit matter. They even experimented on a Medal of Honor winner, Audie Murphy. That's in that book, Operation Mind Control. They used LSD on Audie Murphy. Little historical event there.
You know,
But Jeffrey, you're right. They don't ask about alcohol in the forms.
no, but they're doing a lot of these red flag law bullshit across the nation now, right?
Oh, it's a gun grab.
Yeah.
And tying that into
So-
domestic violence, yeah.
Right. You know, look, we're not going to discuss whether or not domestic violence is precursor to anything else other than domestic violence, right? This is not what we're here for today, right? But the red flag blogs are based on everything and anything that the government can put their fingers on that says, okay, you know, my dad was drinking the other day and he threatened to shoot the cat outside. That's a red flag law, right?
Right.
Or red flag incident. So,
and what's the government's response to that, though? Do they automatically say, well, we got to take away the gun? They don't say, okay, you got a problem. Let's get you in some kind of a treatment program. We'll even pay for it. Let's get you the assistance they need. That's not what they say. They say, okay, no guns for you, right?
Right. You know, and this just hit me really hard, right? I know someone who was, we'll just say related to me in one manner or another. And she went through ECT. You guys know what ECT is?
Yeah.
You know, where they put the fucking colander on your head and shock your brain short term?
Yeah.
Electrocardiology treatment, electroshock treatment, whatever it is.
Yep.
Right. And it didn't work. It didn't work. Yeah, zap, exactly. Right. So it didn't work at all. All it did was it killed this individual's short-term memory. Right. Now, okay. On one hand, we have what are they treating, and the behavioral health stigmatism of treatment in the United States is horrible, right? On the other hand, we have it's a work in progress, right? And how do you fix things, and how do you learn things? You got to make mistakes, right? You have to try all sorts of different approaches. All right, I get that, right? But we're in 2023. Holy shit. Can we just actually figure this out rather than pushing drug? The Western culture, by the way, in medicine is let me give you a drug to fix this problem. Let me give you a drug to fix this problem. And then on this side of the fence, we have to give you 2 or 3 more drugs to fix the problems that those drugs we gave you to fix the initial problem had. Big Pharma doesn't like the cures. There's no money in the cure, right? There's money in medication.
Right. That's why they want to keep. That's why they want to keep people sick.
Exactly. There's no money in the fucking cures. And everyone, don't even pardon my French because that's just how I speak. Now,
It's all there.
Gents. Yeah, gents. Anything else you want to cover here before I have my last thing I want to say?
I think we've hit all the points. I just want to.
This show is rated R. No one under 18.
I just want to end with, that these mass shooting events, I believe, are perpetrated by people that have had their mind controlled by the government for specific reasons, whether it be a gun grab or trying to do away with the Second Amendment or just creating chaos to create posse comitatus and suspend the Constitution or whatever. They're happening for a reason, and that the rest of it's a topic for another day.
Absolutely. Go ahead, Chet.
Okay, kind of got a little off topic as we are wont to do, because again, this is real talk with real people. So we tend to wander off in left field and meander through the tall grass until we get back to where we're supposed to be. So,
Right.
so that said, mind control technologies will continue advancing, whether through neural implants, gene editing, or advanced pharmaceuticals. While these innovations can improve lives, they must also carry risks of blatant abuse. The human mind in all its complexity must never be reduced to just another pawn in the chess game of geopolitics. Its freedom and dignity must be safeguarded above all else. Conspiracy theories related to mind control drugs and active shooter events might suggest that certain government entities or secret organizations are manipulating individuals through the use of mind-altering substances. Theories claim that these drugs are being administered covertly to individuals, influencing them to carry out violent acts such as mass shootings. Proponents of these theories might point to historical events like MK Ultra as a precedent, suggesting that such experiments never truly ended and have evolved into more sophisticated and nefarious programs. Did we already do that?
No.
Or did I get lost? Okay, good.
And Lee, before you take over, I want to say one thing. If the government's listening, which I'm sure they are, if I'm not here next week, I did not commit suicide.
Yeah.
I did not suicide myself, damn it.
All right.
And you're not vacationing in the Bahamas either.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. All right.
All right.
So,
I'm done.
all right, let's wrap this up. In conclusion, real talk with real people. Chet, thanks for bringing us back. One of us has to be somewhere in that general vicinity, right? I appreciate that. In conclusion, on this sobering episode, we've shed light on a troubling case of government overreach, regardless of how you look at it. But past mistakes also present a path forward. Now, I say this with bated breath, and just understand that with vigilance, oversight, and public awareness, we can ensure research adheres to ethical norms. Which this is a scripted line. I'm going to go off script and say, at the end of the day, the challenge is always going to be government oversight versus the public need to know, right? Ren, you said it earlier. And we all know about security clearances. You may have the proper TSC, top secret clearances, or above TSCI, compartmental TSCI clearances. But if you don't have the need to know, then you're not going to know. And, oh, shit, what does that mean? Well, that means that in another 50 years, we're going to learn about another MK Ultra.
I got one of those clearances. And like I said, just because I have the clearance, if I don't have a specific need to know, they ain't going to.
You're not going to know. Right. In the Marine Corps, I had a TSCI clearance. I was a comms guy, right? And all that meant to anyone around me was I could just handle the information when it was passed to me. I didn't have access to it if it wasn't handed to me. Which means I couldn't go ask, hey, Chet, what was that all about?
If you weren't right in on it, you had no access to it.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. So what does that mean for our civilian population that's watching this? Is there's information out there you're never going to know. No matter what your FOIA requests are, no matter who you know, where you know, unless there's a whistleblower, like the biggest whistleblower was Ed Snowden, right? So, all right, we're running out of time, gents.
Actually,
in closing.
No, wait. We still got 5 minutes.
Oh, we do?
Yeah, according to our excellent producer.
Excelente.
Yeah. So, which can bring up another 7 minutes now. Okay.
Cool.
Let's talk about the theory that Hamas is using mind-altering drugs to create all those despicable, horrible acts of violence.
What was the name of that drug?
Oh, Jesus, I don't remember.
Capitan or something
like that. So, is that actually a real thing? Because I've never heard of it before.
Me neither.
It's very common there. I can't imagine if it's that effective.
Well, maybe it's like that drug CAT, KHAT. Remember that?
Well, yeah,
in Afghanistan.
Yeah, but that's actually showed up here though. But my point being is that an actual theory? Did it actually happen, or is that just an excuse to
propaganda?
Excuse despicable acts of violence by one human being on another.
I'd have to agree with it. It's mind altered because when I was down in D.C. when I worked for the State Department, we'd go out on a Friday night, we'd sit next to a hookah lounge, and people would be getting high, smoking those hookah pipes and shit like that. All Arabs, of course. But Yeah, I believe they use mind-altering drugs for that. Absolutely.
Jeffrey, yes, the man killed. I mean, look, that's another subject for an entire different episode about the FBI and the government agency serving warrants, right? And we could get to that. We could do that on another podcast. But yes, absolutely, the Ring camera was there. I know. There's a lot of information on that, but unfortunately, we're running out of time today. However, in closing, Rennie, you want to take us out, and then Chet?
I12 GIA, your contact for training, situational awareness training, firearms training, self-defense training. We sell body armor. We teach CPR, first aid, AED. We sell all that stuff with peace of mind training. Excellent quality training. We can do it virtually or in person.
Excellent. Chet, you want to shout anyone out today?
Yeah, let's do just the usual stuff. Trails Tacos, made in LA. Go buy some. Black Rifle Coffee, made wherever they make that stuff at. And on a final note, Global Elite Tactical Training. If you want some really good training, get a hold of those guys. We can go anywhere. Just look it up online. You'll find them. And maybe some thoughts and prayers. We have some folks involved, boots on the ground right now with the Israeli Defense Force. So definitely keep that in your thoughts and prayers too, please.
I got one more to add to that, and a shout out FFN Network for doing this for us. Great guy, great producer, great gentleman. I get high words of praise for him.
Excellent. All right, gentlemen, this has been an absolute pleasure. Jeffrey, thank you for joining us. And we will see you next time on Situational Awareness Matters, Real Talk with Real People.
Bye, folks.
Good day, gents.
Enjoy your Sunday.